Joe Biden's failing in Afghanistan has continued over the past week and has even gotten debatably worse since I've last covered it. And that was at great pain and hardship to myself because basically nothing else was going on. And so we come back to the Afghanistan issue where now Biden and the Harris administration are now saying that there are probably going to be American civilians left in Afghanistan after the 31st, when all of the military personnel are left out. And this is without doing any more extensions for the military to stay there. Now, there is a lot of problems with that, and it's one of the things that has been announced most recently. But even without that, polling for this has gone not so well for the Harris administration because Biden's approval is down to 41% in a USA Today poll, which, might I mention, going back to their presidential polling, they had him up 8 points, which is 4 points above where he actually was. So even in this case, if we take that margin for error, in all likelihood, it ends up looking more like 36% approval rating, which isn't really good for the Biden man, considering that he really needs his approval ratings to look good in order to have any political capital to do a lot of what his radical agenda is. And once again, this is before you get the announcement that there are still going to be American civilians behind enemy lines after the withdrawal is already done, which is simply unacceptable as a strategy, no matter what sort of stripe you are, whether you're anti-war, pro-war, war hawk, whatever. If you're leaving a country, you should probably take out the civilians first, then go with the military. But it seems that Biden has a different way of doing that particular thing. And it is not just that, because to add insult to injury, they are not just leaving Americans in Afghanistan, they are taking a whole bunch of Afghan refugees, and not just Afghan refugees that are interpreters, people who worked with the USA, people who would actually be at danger if they were left with the Taliban. We're not just talking about that, people who we can confirm are refugees. We're also taking out people who don't even have visas, and who need to be given visas by us, and we have no idea, no way to confirm their identity, to actually make sure that they aren't, say, Taliban or ISIS themselves. This is the exact same problem we had when we did the exact same thing in Iraq in 2011. Because guess what? Back in 2011, when Obama was feigning being anti-war, before later on in 2013 starting wars himself, there was a refugee crisis because of his exit, because of his leaving, and how disastrous it was then. What this ended up leading to was a whole lot of problems later down the line, but we'll get into that a little bit more later, because it's not just frustration about who is coming in, but how they're being treated in America. Because Airbnb has now announced that they're going to bring in Afghanistan refugees in quotes, of course, into people's properties and put them in just because, basically. There's no government coercion here. It doesn't seem that the government's going to be paying for it. It seems like this is a policy on Airbnb's side. I could be wrong about that, though. It's kind of a weird press release, but that sort of thing is frustrating, along with the frustrations that I am still having with, well, people who would normally be more on my side. And I have dual frustrations in this aspect. And first would be the obvious priming of the pump that everyone's missing. Because this looks so much like Iraq, it's not even funny. There are so many things going on right now. Down to Migrant Crisis 2.0, down to the taking of the entire country in such a short amount of time, down to ISIS reemerging, and all of that sort of stuff going on all at once. It is obvious that this is just a way to prime the pump again so that we can go in and get more military spending. Because the last year and a half before we had this disastrous problem with military spending, we had about 2,000 people in Afghanistan, and we hadn't had a military death or we had like one within that 18-month period. Now you have about 5,000 people in Afghanistan, 5,000 American troops. You have more troops now than there were before the exit, and we're spending more money because we actually have to do some fighting and getting people out and spending resources in that way. On top of that, the Taliban are growing in power because we've given them a bunch of our weaponry and a bunch of our Humvees and such, and they have access to the entire state of Afghanistan. They are now the government there. So there's going to be a lot of problems on that front, along with the front of ISIS, where they're re-emerging immediately as Biden gets into office, and you can see how that can lead to a revigorating of the war machine in America, and how this can lead to many excuses for us to go back in, particularly if the migrant crisis goes like it did last time. And on top of that, there's also the problem of China's bloviating, because lots of people have taken the stance that, well, this shows that Taiwan is in real danger from China. First and foremost, among them, of course, being the Chinese government themselves. They have put out tons of propaganda saying, well, Taiwan, we could invade them anytime we wish. We could take them over, and it wouldn't be difficult, and the Americans wouldn't come to help. All of this bloviating. All I want to say to that is, do it. I want to see them do it. I want to see them try. I want them to be openly hostile to Taiwan and actually try to invade them. Because first of all, I and they both know that America is not going to sit back and just watch as Taiwan gets invaded. It's just not going to happen. There is no scenario in which China tries to invade Taiwan and we don't go in and protect them. And second of all, I'm not exactly convinced that the Chinese military, Chinese bootleg of the American military it is, could actually beat Taiwan and Japan, who would definitely both be concerned with what China would be doing at that point. I just don't believe it. And you could say, well, they have mandatory military training for all of their citizens, which to you I say, it's a glorified PE class. It's not really military training. It's over-exaggerated, is the point. And on top of what they're saying about the Afghanistan issue and the Taiwan issue, they're also talking about how, well, the U.S. government's probe into the coronavirus origin was inconclusive. Why are they doing an intelligence investigation into the obvious foul play in the creation of this virus in the first place? There's no way that it came from us. No, we should be investigating the U.S. military, actually, according to the Chinese. It's quite funny to see how much China's bloviating. I mean, can you really blame them? I mean, I'm convinced that's what they make their buildings out of. So that's where I'm going to leave us off. If you enjoyed that video, do, in fact, subscribe down below. There are lots of links down in the description to where I am elsewhere. If you're on YouTube, go elsewhere. In fact, stop being on this platform. Go to BitChute, go to Brighteon, go to Odyssey, go to Rumble, all those places where I put my videos as well. And also check me out on Minds and Gab, where I'll occasionally put my thoughts. And that is all. I'm KelKidman. This has been Breaking on the Daily, and I'm out.